Every day you hustling.
Hey folks, this is Crypto Hustle. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the extremes of crypto market sentiment. We're primarily going to be looking at Bitcoin capitulation on the charts. This is pretty much like one of the lowest points in the market cycle where people throw in the towel and they quit. And we're also going to look at euphoria. So we're just going to kind of take a look at those two extremes, look at some of the news events as it pertains to those extremes and what the general market sentiment is. Now, for the most part, in the markets, we all know the cliche buy low, sell high. However, so few people actually do that, right? In order to actually do that, you need to be a contrarian. It means you need to go against the mass herd, mass human psychology, and to kind of think a few steps ahead of the game, right? Because when the market's down in the pits over here at the lowest point, people are rage quitting, people are angry, people are calling Bitcoin a scam, a Ponzi scheme, all that kind of stuff. And the future really looks bleak. So in order to be able to buy into those lows or into accumulation, you actually have to be a contrarian and buck against that, right? And it means that you need your own very strong internal compass and not necessarily get swayed by outside opinion. And the same goes for, when everybody is euphoric and everyone's has gushing praise and, Bitcoin and crypto is going to take over the world and all these new people start signing up, start joining into crypto. You see those two extremes, right? And I remember over here, we pretty much saw the biggest rush of new users in December of 2017 that I had seen in years, right? Blog stats were going off the charts. Sign-ups for exchanges were going off the charts. So on and so forth, right? You just saw a huge rush of new people, new entrants coming in. And the media kind of fuels that, right? The media just kind of blows the trumpet and attracts new investors in. And we'll kind of take a look at that, right? So for example, down here, the death of Bitcoin. What are some of the things that the media are talking about? Well, you have on January 14th, Bitcoin is getting annihilated, right? The price of Bitcoin is continuing to crash, dropping as low as $173 and so on and so forth, right? And it just kind of, just scares people out of Bitcoin. And the thing is that the news only really reports things after the fact. For the most part, they're not really going to give you a lot of foresight into the future. Now, it's not to say that every investment out there that's crashed or at the lows is necessarily going to be recover or a good investment. So, you obviously have to look at other things too. You can look at fundamental analysis. You can look at technical analysis, things like that. You might be able to buy a company and thinking, oh, right, this company's 90+% off the highs, it's crashed, but you put all your money in it, let's say it just goes bankrupt, right? That is a possibility. However, with Bitcoin, and there's a lot of cryptocurrencies like altcoins that have died entirely as well. I think the majority of altcoins over the long run will end up dying. Bitcoin's been around for over 10 years and it's gone through these multiple market cycles. So it's the oldest cryptocurrency and it's the one that produces the most correlation. Pretty much all the other crypto markets are correlated to Bitcoin's market cycle. And what I mean by correlation is that they pretty much just track the price movements of Bitcoin. So when Bitcoin's really bullish, altcoins tend to rise as well. Those that have survived, right? So it doesn't mean if you buy an altcoin that's slow, doesn't necessarily mean it's going to survive. You should at least try to pick some that have a bit of longevity to them. But Bitcoin, for the most part, seems to be very cyclical, and anytime it's being declared dead, it usually ends up recovering with ferocity. Another article you can see, January 13th, is this the end of Bitcoin? Behind its failing price and many flaws. And it's just an article that pretty much just trash talks Bitcoin. Now, the thing is, there was a Bitstamp hack at the time, which kind of led to this breakdown and this capitulation here. So there was a bit of a a catalyst that led to that, but this market was making lower lows and lower highs in 2017 regardless, so kind of just needed to reestablish an area of price support where you could see that it found support in through the previous high, whereas the previous high, previous resistance became support, and then you had about 10 months or so of accumulation. Some more stuff. Why Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme, right? When was the date on this? January 11th, 2015. So it's just talking about how Bitcoin is a Ponzi scheme. And, a lot of the people who listen to these articles, obviously they've missed out on an opportunity, right? Another one around that time, January 14th, Bitcoin revealed a Ponzi scheme for redistributing wealth from one libertarian to another, right? So just, again, calling it a Ponzi scheme. These are kind of memes in the crypto space where they're calling Bitcoin a Ponzi scheme, comparing it to Beanie Babies or the tulip bubble or any of that stuff, right? It actually kind of shows a lack of imagination. The fact that they're just using cliches to describe and hate on Bitcoin. Calling Bitcoin a Ponzi scheme is actually quite inaccurate. Ponzi schemes are basically recruitment schemes where you have to recruit new users into it, and then you pay old users dividends from the fresh money that comes in. The reason why Ponzi schemes collapse is because they reach a point of market saturation, as in there are only a finite amount of human population, new capital that can come into those Ponzi schemes, so they eventually collapse. With Bitcoin, it's just a supply and demand dynamic, right? You have the supply of Bitcoin through the halving rewards being reduced every 4 years as this new technology grows and new users come into the space, right? So it's actually quite cyclical, but Bitcoin is not dependent on recruiting new users. You could have the exact same amount of users in Bitcoin right now and it'll still function perfectly well, as well as the fact that no one's getting paid dividends from new users, right? So it's not a recruitment scheme, and we're not getting paid from new users. Like, yes, there's an actual supply and demand dynamic. Prices might rise as more demand comes in on limited supply, but you could apply that to just about any market out there. You could apply that to stocks. You could apply that to commodities. You could apply that to the housing market, anything, right? So to just kind of call it a Ponzi scheme purely based off of price speculation, based on supply and demand and market sentiment is is quite limited thinking, right? It shows that they haven't actually thought that through. So that's the capitulation point. These are a couple of examples of extreme market sentiment talking about how Bitcoin is dead at capitulation. And there are many articles all throughout the years where they've declared Bitcoin dead. Now let's look at the other side of this coin, right? The new paradigm as all these new users come in. I mean, what feeds this? What feeds this machine? Well, the media comes out with articles like this. It starts calling in people, right? December 14th, 2017. So instead of calling it dead, they kind of taunt investors. Perhaps people thought about Bitcoin or they heard about it previous years. Perhaps they heard about it when it was at $200 or even lower. And they thought, like that they don't take a risk and they don't necessarily want to get involved. Maybe they think it's a Ponzi scheme. They spent too much time looking at those other articles. Then they forget about it. And then a few years later, they see it all over the headlines blowing their trumpet. Hey, if you invested $1,000 in Bitcoin in 2013, here's how much you'd have, right? And it's basically like showing how many millions of dollars that you'd have. And so people end up kicking themselves and they end up kind of revenge investing where they kick themselves and the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. And then they basically rush in and they start FOMOing. FOMOing basically means fear of missing out. But the problem is once you get to that market saturation point where the market kind of goes parabolic, and you can see right here, I'll just show you what I mean by parabolic. You can see the trends. They're relatively healthy. They start off healthy, and then the trend starts to accelerate, and it gets a lot less healthier until it starts going up straight up vertical to the point where it has to hit gravity, right? What goes up must come down, and you can kind of see the angles just keep shifting, right, as the trend develops, so on and so forth, right? And you can see these long periods of consolidation. You know, consolidation is like sideways price action, where the price basically has to get absorbed at a certain area, right? So the whole supply and demand, you see 6 months here, 6 months here. We can see the acceleration process, right? It's got like, you know, 200 days there, and then it breaks out. You've got another 200 days, and then it breaks out. It starts to accelerate, right? And from this point, before it breaks out again, 78 days, ramps up, about 76 days. So you see that the period of time is speeding up. The trend is accelerating. And we break out. Now it's like 50 days. And we break out again. 31 days. And then break out again, and you know, 23 days, it just keeps breaking out into new highs, right? So you see this trend keeps accelerating faster and faster until it goes parabolic and goes straight up vertical. So that's one of the sure signs. That end market sentiment, that the price structure and market sentiment is one of the sure signs that you'll likely end up into a bear trend. Well, let's look at some more market sentiment. So there's that, and there's this article, which is really hilarious. Everyone's getting hilariously rich and you're not. You know, New York Times, you know, January 13th, they're pretty much just taunting people, right? Flashing these cheesy sweaters, talking about how rich everyone's getting, and you're an idiot, you're a plebe for not getting involved in crypto. So they're just kind of taunting people into getting involved in crypto, just kind of reporting things after the fact. And then, you know, there's other articles, meet the crypto billionaires getting rich from Ripple, XRP. Well, if you look at XRP at the time of this article, this is, let's see, January 2nd, 2018. If you look at Ripple at that time, the price was, you know, right around there. It was going parabolic. You can kind of see how it goes parabolic, going straight up vertical. And then it crashes, right? It attracts a bunch of people. More people come into it. And then eventually the whole thing just comes crashing. And then you start into another market cycle for the coins that survive, that is, you know, and then it comes down 93% off the highs. So, you know, it creates a lot of bag holders, and then those bag holders end up becoming an army, and they pretty much just, you know, pray and hope for the recovery, so on and so forth, right? So that's pretty much crypto market sentiment on that area. Now we're going to look at the recent capitulation that happened this year in 2000 and, you know, the end of 2018, the beginning of 2019, which is right around here, right? Started crashing down, capitulated, started breaking down off of the support in through here, descending triangle, and we had like a shorter accumulation period. You can kind of see the end of the year. Market sentiment was really, really low. So I'll just kind of go into social media market sentiment. So this is a capitulation series that I did. Sometimes I just kind of take screenshots just to take note of market sentiment and so on and so forth. So Bitcoin capitulation series, just see stuff like crypto needs to die. Someone reached out to me. You know, I followed someone on Twitter and they sent me this message and blocked me. Perhaps we are close to the despair stage of this market cycle. Cryptos are dead and crypto community is insane. Do not follow me, right? 11/19. That's you know, right around there as we're crashing down. It's pretty funny stuff. The founder of Dogecoin, Jackson Palmer. Crypto's on sale. I know I'm accumulating at these prices. When it bounces, it'll be huge. Charlatans trying to exploit your fear of missing out via social media to protect their personal investment. Don't fall for it, right? So sometimes, the bears, and there's nothing wrong with being bearish, and there's nothing wrong with calling people out or stuff like that necessarily, but sometimes when people start coming on their high horses, when the bears start coming out and they start preaching about what you should or shouldn't do, or criticizing it, well, oftentimes it's late, it's a little bit after the fact. So December 7th, I mean, where was the price at that point on December 7th? It was right here, right? From that point on, it feels pretty good to get all preachy, but from that point on, Bitcoin went up 300%, and a lot of other coins had gone up higher, right? So the irony is that this really was an accumulation phase, right? So to criticize and laugh at people for accumulating, it just kind of shows where market sentiment was at for the most part, right? And what's interesting with Jackson Palmer is he's capitulated a few times at the low. So for example, during the accumulation of 2015 on the 27th, he pretty much just kind of Dogecoin founder exits crypto community citing toxic culture, right? April 24th, 2015. Well, where is the price at that moment? 2015, April, what was it? April 25th. That was like right around this capitulation right here. This was like the like almost on the nose. Or April 27th. April 24th. Yeah, sorry, April 24th right here. So that's literally that capitulation candle right there. So you pretty much rage quit right on this capitulation. This was caused by a Bitfinex glitch. For anyone who was around, their trading engine was kind of glitching out at that time. So that's kind of ironic. But, so not only was he criticizing everyone during the last capitulation, but also he pretty much rage quit crypto in 2015 in that capitulation, right? And he'd come back to do crypto videos and stuff like that. Well, it's ironic is he capitulated again, so he left his Twitter and YouTube videos. And I'm not critiquing him. I'm just using this as an example for market sentiment, and also, because he's getting a little bit preachy, so we're just going to use that as an example. April 19th, so that was right around here. We just kind of broke out and pretty much quit crypto again, right? All right, so you can kind of see the interesting, funny memes. I personally, myself, the most money I've made in crypto is through buying low and selling high. So, what I was saying during that time is my current trading plan. If the lower BTC dumps to more fiat, I will capitulate as a sacrifice to the bull gods, just kind of joking around about it, trying to have fun. That's my contrarian play. Usually if people are throwing in the towel and market sentiment's really negative, I'll just kind of joke around a bit, and I'll always gun towards buying low, right? But, then some people get really preachy. Hey, if you average down on losers, you're a loser, right? Well, averaging down at that phase in the game was actually pretty good play, if you ask me. You have some, you've got some charts, people posting that it's dead. This was very, very popular. This meme at the time, I saw this meme circulating a few times. We're in accumulation phase, brah. Institutional money coming. Lambo soon. Still down in USD, but up in Satoshis. Backed is coming. Crypto is maturing. Like people will just kind of, if you post something bullish at that time, they'll just kind of criticize it, or I kind of call it like the plebe indicator, when you get these really snarky remarks or rebuttals, just kind of trolling a little bit. So, and what's interesting is I saw this exact same meme in the highs criticizing profit takers, right? Criticizing profit takers, criticizing shorts. I can't find it, but I remember seeing this exact same meme being used at the highs, in December of 2017, which is fairly hilarious. New York Times, crypto assets should be outlawed, What? Wait a minute. Is this the same New York Times that's like, everyone is getting hilariously rich and you're not? And then all of a sudden they're like, let's outlaw crypto. It's pretty funny stuff. Elon Musk, ramen is good. Ramen means Nouriel Rubini down here. With BTC down almost 80% from peak, from 20K to 4K, all other cryptocurrencies down 80% to 99%. I rest my case. That is, crypto bubble went bust for good. I feel vindicated. So I will take a break for a few days from the toxic crypto Twitter waste of time to convince zealots, right? November 20th, getting up pretty high up on his horse, right? Oh, you're right. You're so right, Noriel. Here's where he first started trash talking crypto. In good company with gold, while everyone was focused on gold and silver, Bitcoin dropped another 40%, traded below $58. Traded below $58. And where is this? This is April 16th, 2013. 2013. Let's go and see what the price was at. 2013, April 16th. Right there on this capitulation. Boom. Right? So he's basically laughing, you know, haha, the price was at, $58. Well, let's say, for fun, let's just say you decided to buy Bitcoin on that day. Let's just see. You would make a return on investment, ROI, equivalent to 35,000%. Over 35,000% returns that you would make. So just think about that, right? So yes, Noriel, please feel vindicated. Definitely feel vindicated. Good for you, Noriel. So where was the recent price where he was bragging and feeling vindicated? You know, that's November 20th. That was right around there. You know, so he's on his high horse, pretty high and mighty, feeling vindicated. It's pretty hilarious stuff. Other posts. Crypto is and always will be the trade that sucked in a million financially illiterate, desperate millennial soy boys. The amount of people in the world that made a meaningful amount of money out of it, let's say $1 million fiat, you could fit in an average size bar, right? Another crypto troll. What's funny about Noriel Rubini is that he's pretty much made a career out of trolling Bitcoin, right? He shows up to conferences. I don't know why people pay him to go to crypto conferences, but he shows up at these conferences just to trash talk crypto, trash talk Bitcoin. You know, perhaps people in the community might be somewhat masochistic or whatnot. But he's now built a career out of making money off of being a Bitcoin troll. And I guess, you know, that's a really interesting pivot, because if you've been trolling it since like $58 or whatnot, then I guess you got to try to pivot and make money off of it somehow, right? Anyway, so that's pretty much it. Just keep that in mind. Next time Bitcoin capitulates and slow and people start calling it the death of Bitcoin, declaring it dead. And also keep that in mind when a bunch of new users rush in and you see the price is going vertical, parabolic. You know, stick with the simple principle of buy low, sell high. You might not necessarily nail the bottoms and top, but you don't necessarily have to. You just have to get kind of the meat of the market in between. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to hit the subscribe button. See you folks in the next one. Cheers.